Good morning, friends. Ash here, NPNP News. It's February 28th, 2026, and I'm doing things a little bit different today because I had a little bit of an issue with my first show, which is over here. You can see the video for it. It's linked up. I got about an hour and 18 minutes in, and then the video died. So what I'm going to do, instead of trying to do the whole show from scratch over, which is hard, is I'm going to... Hang on one second. I'm trying to get rid of this. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is do the show, is have replay the show for an hour and 18 minutes on the audio I already have, make a new audio, and then when that show is over, I'm going to finish up the articles because I have it all queued up to where the video cuts out as on my news articles. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the audio from the original show, which I just did this morning, a couple of hours ago, when it unfortunately had an error on glitch mode on me, and the video died out on me. The audio died out on me about an hour and 18 minutes in. So I'm going to play the original hour and 18 minutes. And then when that's finished, I'll come back in right at towards the end. I'll make sure that I'm here. And then I'll finish up the news because there's not too many articles left after that. There's a few that I want to cover. Okay. So I'm going to start the audio now for the show and let it play from the beginning as if I just started the show. Okay, friends? Thanks. Good morning, friends. Ash here, NPNP News. It's February 28th, 2026. We're still at it. We're still here, 6 years later, after starting what at the time I thought was going to be a show that was going to be highlighting the new things that were going to be happening in the world, right? We were supposed to be highlighting the medical beds, highlighting anti-gravitic craft that were going to be released, highlighting the new world that we were going to be living in, like the Jetsons, right? With food, with devices that could create anything you wanted, from clothes to food to houses to cars to whatever you wanted, right? 3D printing technology taken to the 4D and 5D levels. Instead, we're here 6 years later, still in a petroleum-based society, still in a world that runs with oil and gas and antiquated technologies that should have been gotten rid of decades ago. The United States citizens have been turned into a commodity of this corporation of the United States. And a person was brought in who everybody thought was going to be the change agent that was going to rip all that apart. And 6 years into this, really more, because if you think about it, if Trump got in 2016, it's 2026. It's 10 years later, we're still talking about the same problems. We're still talking about a petroleum-based society. We're still talking about no medical beds, no anti-gravitic craft, no Tesla technology, no outing of any of the things that people have been talking about going on, such as adrenochrome production, child sex trafficking. No proof that that's happening in underground dumps. Of course, we know it's happening because we're seeing it happen when there's busts above ground, but a lot of this stuff we're never seeing it, right? The U.S. has attacked Iran. Operation Epic Fury, attack on Iran after regime refuses to scrap their nuclear program. A missile was seen hitting the presidential palace or something. The U.S. launched strikes against Iran Saturday morning. No, that was Sunday. Today's Saturday, right? Sorry. Saturday morning in response to the regime's refusal to dismantle its nuclear program. Well, you saw that the United States told people, American people in Israel who were non-essential to leave, that they could leave, right? That was a sign that something was probably going to happen fairly soon. The attacks which the Department of War called Operation Epic Fury follow a massive U.S. military buildup. So It looks like they tried to assassinate the head of Iran, and we're not sure if they hit him, if they succeeded. I would assume that he wouldn't be above ground after the U.S. moved that much stuff in, but right, you saw El Mencho was assassinated, one of the cartel bosses. What you're realizing is that Scheinbaum wasn't running Mexico, right? It was the cartels. Some people were saying that it was El Mencho that was in fact the de facto ruler of Mexico. Iran then launched missiles towards Israel in a retaliatory attack. They also hit the U.S. base in Bahrain, which got attacked. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. So, is this enough to fix the problem? Probably not, right? Did they kill some of the upper level people in Iran's government? Yeah, probably. Did they get the leader guy? I'm not assuming no, because unless he's really stupid. And where'd they find Saddam Hussein after they were looking to kill him all that? He was in a bunker under the ground, fearing for his life, right? He wasn't above ground in his palace where they could hit him. No. So we attacked Iran. Multiple high-ranking Islamic commanders, regime officials were killed in Operation Epic Fury, New York Post. This is not a drill. China's building a base in Canada. Did you know that? China's building an some kind of base, and maybe in the Catskills, which is in the United States, or is it parts of it go into Canada, right? As we are distracted, fecklessly try to convince the liberal mental belly flops on Facebook that any way they slice it, Trump wasn't one of the Jeffrey Epstein pedos. The Chinese are taking advantage of our botheration and have been creating quite successfully a forward operating base in Canada. Yeah, they went and met with Canada, right? And decided that they're going to let them make a military base there, which is highly... That's not something the United States is too happy about, right? It would be like us making a military base that would, in a nation that was directly, connected to China on its border. Now they're going to have an operating base less than 500 miles from the U.S. Well, that's okay. They have bases inside the United States that we probably don't even know about. I mean, if they're buying up thousands of acres of our land, how do you know what they're building under the ground there? You don't. What if they have sophisticated tunneling mechanisms and now all of a sudden they got an underground base that you can't see with your balloons, you can't see with satellites? And they're operating inside your country. We never dealt with China. That was the bigger problem, the bigger enemy we should have dealt with first. And the way you deal with China is monetarily. You cut them off. You cut off their food. They need us to survive. They can't grow enough food for their country, for all their people. They rely heavily on some of our food. So you starve them. That's how you do it. You threaten to cut off all food supplies to their country. How about that? We don't want to sell you any more agricultural product, and we're kicking you out of the country, and we're taking all the land back that you bought, and we're giving you your cash back. We'll even give you with a little percentage increase, right? Maybe if it appreciated in value. This base is going to be less than 500 miles from the U.S. Even worse, I have a sneaking suspicion that the Canadian government's in on the commie caper to hand Prince Edward Island over to the filthy Chinese communists who seek to, with Islam, take over the world. Well, you did see that video that surfaced years ago on, I think it was on Prince Edward Island or one of the islands, where there were Chinese troops jogging along the side of the road. People were filming it, like, what the hell's going on? Why are what appear to be Chinese troops here in Canada jogging along or doing operations on this island for? Nobody ever figured out what that was all about. I'll have to go to try to find that footage again on YouTube. Remember that was way back when Biden was in. There was rumors that there were Chinese under the ground in tunnels that were trying to get into the United States that way. Right? Serbia refuses to cooperate with Israeli authorities on the arrest of ex-Netanyahu party advisor. Clinton says Trump is innocent in explosive Epstein testimony. As Donald tears into Republicans for dragging Bill to the grilling. I can't understand what the hell's going on here. What the hell is going on here? Trump's defending the Clintons. The Clintons show up. Hillary shows up and she gives them nothing. She says, why am I even here? This whole thing is a farce. It's a canard. Right? They're just going through the footsteps. After all these years, this is all you get out of these people? A testimony? After all the things that the Clinton Foundation did wrong and illegally? This is what, this is what they end up getting out of it, and they're not going to go to jail. You think these people are going to jail, man? Come on. Is anybody in Gitmo? I hear these idiots, these other fake pundits old pundits talking about Gitmo trains. What are you talking about? Where are the people boarding the trains in cuffs? Show me the video of it. What are you talking about? You liar. I'm calling you out as a liar in public. Prove that I'm wrong. Show me the Gitmo trains. Show me the people on the trains that I know in jumpsuits. And how do I know it's not going to be an AI video at this point? I've watched a lot of AI videos. It's pretty obvious it's AI to me. If some people can't tell the difference, then, well, you want to believe what you want to believe. And the other argument is these people say, well, Biden was in there for 4 years. Why didn't they have the DOJ find the stuff then? Well, the FBI was hiding the shit. They were about to burn it up in burn bags. Is Trump in there? He's got to be in there. He's all over these people. He's intimate with them. There's no question he's in there. The question is, how deep is he in there? What was he being used for? Well, one thing he was being used for was money laundering. We know that. He had casinos and businesses that's what they used it for. And that's why he was continuously bailed out again and again. Because casinos are the biggest way to launder money, probably of all the businesses that you can own. It's one of the biggest ones that it's used by the organized crime because it can launder the most cash. How do you think they built the casinos out in Las Vegas? They built it with pension money that was stolen from the longshoremen and different pension funds that organized crime got control of by force in the 50s, 60s, 70s period. Maybe before. The truckers union, right? Jimmy Hoffa, all that stuff was illegal, what they were doing. They took over those truckers union funds and were skimming funds and stealing funds out of there for years. Clinton says Trump is innocent in explosive Epstein testimony. Is that why they made a deal? Okay, you'll go up, you'll say I'm innocent, we won't look into you too hard. We'll let you get off with just a slap on the wrist, something, right? We'll never look into the Clinton Foundation. We'll let that whole thing slide. I'll get rid of Hoover. You'll defend me and it'll all go away. See what they're doing? That's what they're doing. And then Trump will say, oh, I don't really like this. I don't think you should talk to Bill about this. He just went on the plane a few times. He didn't do anything wrong. Really? The guy's a sex addict. We know that. We know he likes young women. We know that. And who is he around? A lot that can provide that to him in a very private, sterile way where it's encapsulated, right? It's on the plane, it's on the island, it's somewhere, it's places I can go where there's never going to be paparazzi. They can't even see me. They don't even know I'm here. I left my Secret Service detail behind, right? So I'm off grid. Most times a president's not allowed to lose the Secret Service detail. That's not, but Clinton is known to have done that multiple times, right? So did Hunter Biden, by the way. The Hills Have Eyes, secret surveillance network springs up in San Diego. So apparently there's a road that goes between San Diego and the border, I guess? But they found out that there's whole bunches of camera networks along this road that's cataloging all the cars that come and go. A vast surveillance network is recording every driver passing through a stretch of road between San Diego and the Arizona state line. Okay, so it's between the Arizona line and... So why would that be going on? Excuse me. The secretive move started after California granted permits to the Border Patrol and other federal agencies, allowing the placement of license plate readers. Yeah, they have these all over. They can also then run your plate and see if you have like a warrant. So people will say, well, hey, it's a good thing. I mean, they're capturing criminals and people who might be human smuggling and smuggling drugs, etc. Yeah, that's true. But there's also certain laws that are in place where I'm allowed to travel freely within the United States if I'm a United States citizen, unbothered. I shouldn't be, as long as I'm following the laws of every state I'm in, the driving laws, I'm not speeding, right, I'm not driving recklessly, etc. I should never be stopped. I should be able to drive from California to New York unobstructed and unbothered, right? But that's not always the case depending on your race and other things. But if I'm driving through these areas that now are recording my license plates and stuff like that, or taking actual photos maybe of me, well, no. Then some people might say, well, that's a little bit more. That's a little bit more than I was thinking that we needed as a country. We don't need that level of surveillance, do we? Probably not. But more states are doing this, where they're reading your license plates. There's been a $5 million reward offered for Sinaloa cartel boss La Rana, charged with narco-terrorism. So what they're doing right now it's the Sicario Day of the Soldado, right? It's how do we destroy the cartels? Well, you gotta kill them. It's the only way. You can't bargain with these people. You can't ask them to stop doing what they're doing. You can't give them a sum of money that will make them stop doing it, because they're making more money than you have. Excuse me. They make more money than some corporations make, tax-free. Why would this help? When in fact, the United States CIA and other agencies may have in fact helped some of these, and have in fact helped some of these cartel bosses get into power and set them up. People like Pablo Escobar and others were creations, in a sense, of the CIA, who were using them to import tons and tons of cocaine and heroin into the United States for decades. And until we can come to some kind of place where these things are all in the public purview, right? Like you have to go back and look at like the Vietnam War and Air America. Like there was people moving around opium and heroin back then, and even before then there was people moving around large amounts of drugs after World War II ended, right? That was never dealt with. All these gangs and organized crime groups that exist in the United States were never dealt with. In fact, we're allowed to thrive in some instances. We're working and we're allowed. The United States government never even mentioned the word mafia until the 50s, the 1950s, which, think about it, there had been organized mafias or organized crime groups from different countries that had existed in the United States for the 100 years previous, almost, at that point. Going back to the 1890s, when larger gangs, Italian and Jewish gangs, started to rise up and overpowered the Irish, who had in the previous decades been dominating organized crime just by their sheer numbers that were coming into the country. Iran strikes back near U.S. Navy base in Bahrain, launches barrage of missiles. So I think they also launched something at Israel. So these people are trying to start World War III. They really are. It's the whole, it's the whole doctrine of the Masonic doctrine, right? We need 3 world wars to establish our domination over mankind. Then people will be ready to take on any society that we show them, as long as it will stop the chaos and stop the war, right? So you've been in this chaos loop that's been going on your whole life. And that chaos loop has been on purpose, right? Because that allows these people to put in the plan that they want, but it's something that has to happen over time, where society breaks down and gets so tired of being sick and tired that they say, okay, we'll just, whatever, you want to put cameras everywhere and you want to put the grid in place and you want to put the New World Order in, okay, we'll let you do it because we just want order again, right? But there would have been order if these people had been doing their jobs correctly. They're just not doing their jobs. It's like the same thing when they let the police stand down in parts of, Great Britain, and they let these guys roam the streets all over near the bars and clubs trying to rape the women who come out of these bars and clubs late at night. There's no cops around. There's nobody to protect you. So then you got to protect yourself, right? That's what I learned as a young kid in this city when I was being bullied by bigger kids. And I realized that if I didn't figure out a way to either run faster than everybody else, which I could almost do when I was really young. I was one of the fastest people in my whole area. In fact, there was no one that could catch me. I was that quick. Like when we played tag games, I could just outrun everybody. But at some point, you can't do that anymore, right? U.S. and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. One of my listeners was saying, what's going on with Guthrie? Is this just more distraction? They still haven't found her mother. She's now offering $1 million reward. My question is, why you should have offered the $1 million right off the bat? No? Why did it take you two when your mother was probably half dead by the time you offered $1 million reward? I don't know if they can track her pacemaker. There's some way that there's something distracted about this. And apparently the guy may have made a mistake. It looks like these people, whoever they were not very smart. So Trump's tariffs were ruled illegal. He's still doing global tariffs. It doesn't seem to have stopped him. Italian groups patrolling the subways. Anti-migrant pickpocket and theft measures. This is from X.com, right? There's people that are so fed up with the theft and the pickpockets that are in places like Italy, they're just starting to patrol the subways because the cops aren't doing enough. And it's easy to spot them. They're usually these young girls, right? Their hands are smaller, they're not shorter of stature, it's not harder to spot them, and they sort of congregate around the doors as people come in. They try to they try to get up right on top of you. Somebody's bumping you, you're distracted, you got a backpack on. People are stupid. They leave like their wallet in their back pocket or something. Best place for your wallet's in your front pocket if you're on the subway and you're worried about pickpockets. Yeah, you got to put your wallet in your front pocket. where it's harder to, if you're wearing like jeans, let's say, or pants, it's harder to steal it out of the front pocket. You're probably going to feel it more easily. Trump announces new global tariff in astonishing attack on SCOTUS and threatens end-to-end trade with nations. That's his power. He can always end trade with nations if he wants. I'm fearing that my voice is beginning to deteriorate to the point where I can't do the show much longer. And maybe that's the universe telling me whatever contract I had or thing I had to do here is coming to an end. I don't think this was what it was. It was part of it maybe, but another part of it would be that my other job was to maybe just hold energy here, work to open your third eye as much as possible under difficult circumstances, and pick a life that was extremely difficult in many different ways, in trying with a family that was difficult to live with, that showed you minimal love. And within that paradigm, try to figure out, first of all, who you are, which is almost impossible because your memory's been wiped, and two, figure out what you're supposed to be doing here in a place that feels, most of your life has felt alien to you. And has felt like, to me, a place that I never really truly belonged in. And I've often, a lot of times hanging out with some people in my family wondering, like, is this really my family? I don't feel like these people are my family. So the FBI were warned Epstein could be destroying evidence in an incinerator after suspicious barn was built at Zorro Ranch. Well, you never went there. You never fucking went there. So whatever evidence he ever had there, you never figured out what it could have been. But most of this guy's evidence is video, right? Which can easily be wiped if you have the motherboard for it. If you're the one running the system, you could delete anything you want. I could delete everything. Whole segments of it, days of it, hours of it, minutes of it. Whatever I want to delete, I could delete. So you're never going to find anything in Epstein Island either, because he already knew you were coming weeks and months ahead of time. All he had to do was get rid of the evidence, but there still was a lot of documented evidence that they found on Epstein Island, right? Video evidence, which is, some of it's coming up, but it's all redacted, so you can't see it. And then also the top 23 people, like the Leon Blacks and the worst people, the worst of the worst people who were on the island the most, you'll never find out who they are. Although I think somebody named them anyway, in public. Mysterious spikes in Earth's heartbeat are scrambling human brains with an eerie high-pitched ringing. I've been hearing that ringing for years in my ears. It's been slowly driving me crazy, to be honest. Infamous photo of ex-Prince Andrew after his arrest is hung in the Louvre by activists and stuns visitors. So somebody, the same photo I used for this last dig, the guy hung it up, glued it up in the Louvre to the wall. There's Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Really, his real name is Andrew Saxberg Goltha. They're Germans. Not that there's anything wrong with Germans. But their lineage is German, which they, after World War I, sought to hide from the public, and so they changed their name to Mountbatten Windsor, or Windsor. Hello, with the Windsors from Buckingham Palace. I love the British accent, but I'm not a big fan of the royals, because a lot of them are crazy. Didn't one of the kings chop his wife's head off? Right? So you're coming from a background of lunacy, in a sense. Mexican military kills cartel kingpin El Mencho. El Mencho's been taken out, which is what kicked off the massive wars that were going on, because a lot of the people within the country are controlled by El Mencho, or under his control, including certain paramilitary groups that have more weapons than some of the local police have. So you're going to have now a military war. I don't think that Mexico's military is cooperating with this. I think it's most of this is probably U.S. involvement too, with some Mexican forces. India and the United States paused trade talks following Supreme Court tariff ruling. So this is a problem because India and China, India and the Soviet Union are two of our biggest trading partners. India is one of our largest trading partners. Now what you're seeing with the silver is it's starting to move back up $5 already just on Friday alone, after they tried to use the paper contracts earlier in the week to bust it back down, which they did below 90 again. But every time they do that, it just goes right back up eventually, because the bottom line is that they put a bottom under silver that it's not supposed to go at lower than now. And it's also been, under Trump, it's been deemed a national, something that's important to the national security of the country, because so many things are made with silver. Weapons, electronic components, televisions, cars, missiles, planes, other higher technology. They need silver. It's a good conductor of energy, as is gold. And they haven't found something that is better than silver yet and what it does. So it's very valuable to all countries. And all countries are going to want to secure a certain amount of silver going forward, which they will never have enough of. And which begs the question, why is silver so cheap? It should be hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars an ounce, which it will be, I think, in the years to come. But it's going to take some time to build back up to that, right? It's been suppressed a long time. They can't just one day have it, everyone will wake up and it goes from 90 to, 500, right? That would cause a buying frenzy. Or then people would say, well, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? How did that happen? Australia backs removal of ex-Prince Andrew from line of succession. He should be removed. He should be removed. Mexican military kills cartel kingpin El Mencho. The battle for Mexico's freedom, I wrote. UPI, double confirmation. France braces for rallies after beating death of Quentin Durang. So this man was beaten by Antifa people to death, right? He was working security for an event. He volunteered. And he was beaten to death by Antifa in the street. I don't know if there was some retaliation. It seemed like a large group showed up in some area where the Antifa was known to be, but I don't know if any people were attacked or there was any other. What you're seeing, if you go on Twitter and look on certain accounts, there is a lot of violence starting to happen in places like England, where groups are just getting fed up with these guys abusing them and their women. There's been some rapes of young women under the age of 18 by some of these illegal aliens that have been pushed into, and the retaliation is severe, brutal, and quick in most cases. And beatings have been and are being given out by people who are fed up with some of these groups. And this not just in England that's happening. It's happening in Italy, it's happening in Spain, it's happening in other countries where huge amounts of these people were just pushed in who don't speak the language, some of whom are criminally minded, some of whom are just don't have anywhere to go, right? There's no homes for these people, there's no jobs for these people, they don't speak the language. That's a problem when you push a whole bunch of men into societies like this who don't speak the language and have no way to make any money. Eventually, the funds you're giving them the people's taxpayers' money you're stealing to give to these people is going to run out. And then what are they going to do? The deep state strikes back. James Comey's leaker claims the Epstein files shouldn't have been released. Really? Okay. Why not? There's still millions and millions of files that haven't been released. And the question is, if they're not all released, then how do we know? You know, people are saying, well, Trump is exonerated and all these like lies where he's not exonerated. There's different rape accusations in there. He's been accused of witnessing an infanticide, the death of a baby, the killing of the murder of a child. So I don't understand how it doesn't appear to me that that these files are exonerating him. They're opening the door of more questions. West African migrants nabbed in Canal Street raid freed as judge slams ICE for blatantly unlawful arrest. So these guys are illegal aliens, some of them. I think the majority of them. They're selling illegal fake bags and fake wallets and fake, knockoff fake items that they're counterfeiting. That they're costing these brands like Gucci and Prada and all these millions and millions of dollars in losses because people would rather buy these cheap knockoffs. They're flooding our Canal Street with all these people who shouldn't be there. They're illegal. They're running illegal businesses where they set up on the sidewalk and sell their wares. They're blocking the flow of traffic, civilian traffic on the sidewalks. They're harassing business owners who pay rent to have their stores on Canal Street, and nothing's being done about it. And then when you do arrest a couple of them, the judge says, how dare you arrest that illegal alien who's selling counterfeit goods on the sidewalk illegally? How dare you bother him? It's just, we're like, the whole thing is upside down. The judge should be like, yeah, get these guys all off the street. They shouldn't be there. They should all be arrested for counterfeiting goods. It's called selling counterfeit goods. It's a crime. Virgin Islands government considered selling Dog Island to Jeffrey Epstein for $1.1 million. That's a steal. Or parts of it, right? So they were going to sell him parts of it. He was going to buy Little St. James, which is the smaller island right across from St. James, which he owns. And then on top of that, he wanted Dog Island as well. So he was going to have a whole fiefdom. Right? He was going to have 3 islands he owns right there. But that's bigger than Branson, right? Oh, Branson, you got the little island over there? Yeah, I got 3 islands. How you doing? I got 3. Plus I got a helicopter. Plus I got maybe a sub. I got 4 planes. Right? This guy's global. Right? He's global. I got all kinds of infrastructure on this island where I film every single thing that goes on. Anywhere on this island I can film it. I've got huge amounts of compromat on very, very powerful people, billionaire types who are like Bill Gates and leaders like Ehud Barak and other people who I have control of. Here are all the tariffs staying in place after the Supreme Court rules against the Trump administration. So some of the tariffs don't get changed. Biased spies. John Ratcliffe cleans house at the CIA. Well, it's taken you a long time to do it. Why is that? What about coming out with all the stuff that the CIA did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s? The Statue of Liberty's satanic connection. So there's this kid, I forgot his name, he does some really good stuff. He does these short clips, like they're 30, 45 second TikTok clips, right? Where it's like giving you all kinds of like very quick pieces of information, like that connect Disney to Pinocchio and all this stuff, right? And Santa is Satan and all this stuff, and he shows you the sort of like the loose connection. So it's working in a sense, like what? And that was my point, was that like years ago when I started doing this, I say, well, what's the end game of it? Because like at some point enough information has to come out. Okay, so let's watch this. It's his name is Juan Bergmank, is that his name? Yeah, Juan Bergmank on YouTube. It's not a Disney theory, but it's crazy. So we're going to look at the Statue of Liberty for a second. Okay, so he's typing in Statue of Liberty, Statue of Lucifer. Right, and it's similar, right, with the torch and... It's like, boom, it's right there, dude. The Statue of Lucifer with the torch, Statue of Liberty. Satan Summoning His Legion painting. When was Satan Summoning His Legions painting created? 1796 to 1797. Wasn't that kind of like, sort of like right after we created the United States, no? And then when they created the United States, what was this other group that got created the same exact date or the year that the United States was created? It was the Illuminati. 1886 Statue of Liberty. It has 7 points on the crown. And the sandals, what? He's pointing to the feet, the chain. Satan has a crown in his hand that has 7 points on it. Who made the Statue of Liberty? Frederick Berthold, right? He was a Freemason. A Freemason made the Statue of Liberty. Of course, France gave it as a gift to the United States. It was shipped over in pieces and reassembled. Of course, they didn't even have a base for it to stand on at one point, the Statue of Liberty. The torch was actually, the torch was put in parts of Manhattan for a time where people could go up in the torch for a nickel to pay for the base of that the Statue of Liberty would stand on, the dais, if you will, that had to be created. In fact, we almost lost the Statue of Liberty to Boston because they were willing to put up the money to make a dais for it to stand on. But instead it came to the New York, and of course they placed it in the harbor, which shows that their allegiance is to maritime admiralty law, not the law of the land, right? Because if then the Statue of Liberty should have been put on land then. But it's really a satanic. It's a Masonic. It's made by a Mason, and it has a satanic origin. If you look at what we just looked at, installed by Freemason Statue of Liberty. Plaque on the cornerstone of the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, it has the Masonic plaque, right? It's a plaque with the Masonic symbol, which is the G with the, I forgot what this is called. It's what people use to draw a circle, right? It's used in construction and different things to map different like charts, right? Charts like sea charts, where you can chart your position in a ship with those things. I forgot what it's called, but it's got the G, right? The apple. Where is the Statue of Liberty located? Of course, it's located right off the coast, right? It's located in the Hudson River, where the Hudson River meets the East River. Interesting how Satan had the apple right at his feet. New York is known as the Big Apple. So there you go. This kid's interesting because he's figured out the way to condense it, right? Because people, like I said, people don't, they've figured out how to make your attention span shrink to the point where it's almost doesn't exist, right? Whereas reading a book would be almost impossible for some of these kids, because to sit down and just turn your phone off and read a physical paper book, a lot of people don't like to do. They maybe do books on paper or book on tape or whatever, which is, I've done that, listen to books on tape. Some people like that. I find it hard to read books because I have like a little bit of ADD, so I tend to reread the same sentences over and over, and I'll start to lose my train of thought and not be able to keep my attention on the book, which a lot of people also do. That's from overstimulation, right? We have so much stuff stimulating you, especially in New York, with sound, sense, sights, sounds, smells, everything. It's very overwhelming in New York. So that kid is pretty interesting. I like his YouTube account. His name is Juan Bergmank, and he does all kinds of different ones where he's like talking about different stuff. But what I think is happening is that people like me and other people who have been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, trying to wake people up, it's working. It's the next generation knows all this stuff now. Like it's second nature to them to know it now. It's like, yeah, we know all about these people. They've been fucking around with us in our society for forever. They're secret societies that have been doing this. Really, this is about that secret society should be banned in all cultures, because most of them are don't have humanity's best interests at heart. Eye-popping figure needed to save Pacific Palisades after apocalyptic wildfire. Yeah, you burnt down a lot of people's houses. You should have to be forced to pay that back and allow people to rebuild their homes quick, not wait years. Remember how they said that they're supposed to be expediting this? And they're supposed to be expediting, right? And the people were supposed to be allowed to rebuild quick. Well, that's not happening for the majority of people. All this time later, they still haven't been able to. Here's an opinion piece. Mamdani just revealed his utter ignorance of how to handle the violent mentally ill. Yeah. He wants to send a social worker into a situation that could be violent, right? He wants to send them into a situation where it might be a couple that's fighting, that somebody might be under the influence of some drug, alcohol or other, that it may become violent, right? I don't know how many times I've seen people under the influence of alcohol become violent. There's something that's in alcohol that can create that in people, right? That brings it out in people, some people, right? Not all, because I've seen some people that are drunk are very friendly, they're nice, they love everybody. But then there's other people where it flicks that switch, right? They get belligerent, nasty, violent. I've seen people do stuff blackout drunk that the next day they have no idea what they did. What do you mean I did that? I hit that guy in the face? Yeah, you beat the crap out of this guy last night. You don't remember? No. Well, go look at your face. Well, why is your face all marked up and your hands all cut up and stuff and you're all bruised up? You don't remember what happened? I've had that happen to me a couple of times towards the end of my drinking career, where I began to become a little bit blackout drunk at times, where I'd wake up and be like, why am I all sore? And like, oh, I fell, that's why. I cracked my head into something, I got a black eye here, I don't know why. That's when you know it's time to stop drinking. Minor loophole. New York City Council bill could prevent young people who commit crimes from getting arrested. So these people are trying to make these loopholes. We already have it where they raise the age where, so if you're 16 or 17 and you get, caught maybe stealing or whatever, there's no consequence. You just get right back out, no bail, no problem. Even more violent crimes, some of them they're walking right out. What if you're 14 and you kill somebody? Is that okay? No. You should be tried as a murder charge. You're old enough to know what your right and wrong is by 14 years old. British police continue the search of ex-Prince Andrew's former residence. What are they going to find in there? Does he have any child porn in his computers? Maybe. Although his peccadillo seems to be just young women under the age of 18. He likes them like 15, 16 years old, something like that. Maybe 14. That's his thing, it seems like to me. Which is still rape. You're still with an underage child. But this guy's had all kinds of different women that, come and go from the palace. I mean, like I don't know where his wife his poor wife having to go through what she had to go through, watching him self-destruct and, become a sex addict. And he never gets treated for it. Report says 1,000+ Kenyans and other Africans are fighting for Russia. Really? There's Kenyans fighting for Russia now? What's going on? Doesn't Russia have... And how is it that it seems like all the reports seem like Russia's losing more troops than Ukraine, which I find hard to believe. I think Ukraine would have the way higher troop deaths. What is really going on in this country? Are they just continuing to money launder through this country as long as possible? I guess so. Where's all that money laundered money going back to? Certain people? I mean, we still haven't taught, how is Trump going to tell you about the aliens, right? Is he just going to say, yeah, there's aliens. Okay. Where? How do we know? What do they look like? Who are they? How many different kinds of aliens are there? Because some of these specialists have gone and said there's like 80 or more different types of alien groups. There's 80 plus. Which means that there's a whole bunch of people that are way above our pay grade, right? That are in dimensions that we don't even understand, that we cannot see. And you're basically at the bottom of that totem pole, all the way at the bottom. The newest member of an eclectic intergalactic group, if you believe it exists, that encompasses hundreds of different cultures and races of people that you never knew existed until whenever you woke up to the fact that there's aliens. It's kind of stupid to think that, with all the galaxies and all the universes that we can see through our telescopes, that there's nothing out there. That doesn't make any logical sense, right? Because we've already uncovered the fact that there are dozens of Earth-like planets that exist in other universes and in places that, could have life on them that are similar to Earth, right? Where oxygen is a level, it's in that comfort zone where it's not too hot and it's not too cold, where some kind of living organism can live and thrive. How stupid were we to just believe we were all alone all those years because a bunch of people told us so. Trump raises the global tariff from 10% to 15% after SCOTUS ruling. The United States of America will be effective immediately raising the 10% worldwide tariff on countries to the fully allowed and legally tested 50% level. Okay, so if that's the level we're being taxed, then I'm all for it. But if you're going to tariff other countries higher than what they tariff you, they'll just turn around and tariff your goods higher back. It's a lose-lose. Because then certain things that we need in this country that we want to buy cost a lot more, is what you're doing. You're causing Americans to have to pay more for certain products by doing this also. Maryland sheriffs demand Governor Wes Moore restore law enforcement partnerships with ICE after ban. Mark my words, you will see a dramatic increase in the presence of ICE in this state. Yeah, you can't as the governor just say, hey, I'm going to not work with this federal agency. That would be like a governor saying, hey, you're looking for a murder suspect in my state, the FBI? We're not going to assist you in any way, shape, or form. What? What are you talking about? You don't get to choose whether you assist the FBI. You have to assist the FBI. It's in your mandate. Right? It's in your rule book that you have to, if an FBI comes into your jurisdiction and asks for your assistance, you have to help them. You can't not help them. You could be held accountable in a court of law for that as an obstruction of justice. Then what happened? Ghislaine Maxwell's brother all of a sudden comes out of the woodwork, Ian, and speaks up for Prince Andrew and says the royal is a single man. His sex trafficker sister is on the right side of history, and Virginia Giuffre was a monster. Are you kidding me? You're going to defame this poor girl? You're defaming the dead? Somebody who your sister helped to exploit? And you're going to paint her as the one that's the good guy in all this? The good person? I don't think so. Go fuck yourself. How dare you defame the dead? These people are desperate and they're scared right now because little by little the Chiliad is coming out. You're seeing Whitney Webb and people like the other influencers who are really good news pundits and newscasters, whatever you want to call them. I think she does write articles, so she is really considered a journalist. She's a journalist that's actually doing her job correctly, and good for her. And I wasn't the only one talking about Chiliad. There was Kiliad. There was other people that had mentioned it long before I ever figured it out. Articles had been written, but those articles, for the most part, had been, especially after 2008 when Obama came in, that stuff, a lot of it got scrubbed off the web. They didn't want anybody knowing about Kiliad. They didn't want anyone knowing that the Maxwell family had access to government files in any way, shape, or form, because they should have never gotten that far. It should have never gotten that far. Christine Maxwell should have never been allowed to run Kiliad, because it had access to top secret U.S. government files, and she was a British citizen. Email proves that Charles was warned about his brother's secret deals. Whistleblower told the palace that royal family's name was being abused by Prince Andrew, or by Andrew. What about Jimmy Savile? They were part of pedophilia for years. Charles was next to a pedophile for decades. For decades. Andrew's just the tip of the fucking iceberg of what these people did. What about the whole Kamloops incident where the children disappeared from the Indian school after they went for a lunch with with the queen and the king, and all of a sudden those kids never returned from the lunch because they were the lunch. It's my guess. That never got mapped out, and they never could find the bodies. I don't know why they never exhumed any of these areas up in just by the school where they were claiming that children's bodies were. You have to exhume those areas and find the corpses, the skeletal remains, or else it's just an accusation, right? Metro Detroit schools cancel contract with Lifetouch after Epstein-related concerns. Lifetouch says the allegations are misinformation. So people didn't realize this, but apparently Epstein is connected to this company. And they got pictures of your kids all over the place. From all different schools in different states and different parts of you. They have photos of your kids and what they look like, right? You remember those photos you used to take every year for your school photo albums, right? The school would have a yearbook when you graduate, and you take your yearbook photos, and when you were in like 4th and 5th and 6th grade, you'd have your school photos, right, each year for your parents. They dress you up, you come in and do your school photos, right? So they had a photo of every single kid, what they look like in 4th grade and 5th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade. Several schools in the Metro Detroit are pausing or canceling photography services with Lifetouch after the company was linked to individuals mentioned in the Epstein files. This article came out February 19th, just recently, 2026. This is out of Metro Detroit, local news in Detroit. So, was Lifetouch assisting some of these pedophiles and possibly letting them know what your kids look like? Maybe. And they were choosing the kids that they wanted to maybe kidnap? It's possible. There's no other country on earth where more children go missing each year than the United States. Go look up the statistics. Here's another article. Photo company Lifetouch dropped by Pittsburgh area school amid Epstein files. So it's Detroit and Pittsburgh area schools and a Pennsylvania school have now dropped Lifetouch. So check, is your kid's school using Lifetouch for the photos? You might not want to send your kid in for the photos or say, hey, I took a photo of my kid. I don't need you to do it. Right? I don't want you having photos of my child because I don't know what the negatives are. Mamdani is collapsing faster than we thought. Yeah, I also agree with that. He's not doing anything. In fact, he's just sitting around. Oh, and then the snowstorm came and he made a huge deal of making sure he looked like he was doing his job. He had multiple press conferences. It's a fucking snowstorm, dude. Like we haven't had a 50 other storms. Yeah, we know you're going to get the sanitation department out. But he's telling everybody, don't go out of your house. Stay home. Who are you to tell me where I can go? So what if a foot of snow is going to come down? So that's nothing in New York. Really, we have an extensive plow system and sanitation system that takes care of our roads here. We pay a lot of money to have that. We have huge amounts of salt. But they didn't pre-salt the roads for the second storm, 1. And 2, I noticed that overnight there was almost no plow activity that I heard. Usually the plows wake me up when they come by because they're loud. And it snowed all day and then all that night into the next day at about 2 or 3 p.m. So it was snowed, like 36 hours almost continuously. That was a huge storm. And I don't think it was natural. And so Mamdani's done nothing else. He just went to the White House begging Trump, I guess, for what? More money that he's not going to give him, saying, oh yeah, we need to develop parts of the city. How are you going to build housing for people that makes no profit? Who does that? Who are you going to pay to build it? Somebody has to build it and be willing to build it and just get paid to build it and not make any more profit on it. There's some people saying Mamdani will be run out of office within 1 year. We'll see. Let's hope so. Bombshell investigation exposes cover-up of Obama-centered taxpayer scam. One way he might be run out, Mamdani, is that the fact that only 1 million people voted for the guy, and only 2 million people voted in the entire mayoral election. Nobody's looked into how that happened and why and how that is possible. If that's the actual true number, that would mean that 6 million people did not vote, which that's beyond voter apathy. That's just, there's something that can't be. That would be the most people that never voted in a mayoral election in the history of the city, I would think. But New York is known for very low voter turnouts. So is it possible 6 million people didn't vote? I find it hard to believe, but it could be. 1 million subject to fire watch is Oklahoma fire. So there's fires in Oklahoma that somehow got set, that are rushing across the state, which doesn't have a lot of trees in it to burn, although in the southeastern part of the state they do. It's a much different climate there. It's not as dry. Of course, this is a state where a lot of the mineral rights have been sold out from under the pieces of land, because some of the land in this state, not all, but some, has natural gas and possibly oil, right? So Bill and Hillary were just testified. They were going to testify next week. This was 5 days ago. They just did testify, and there's nothing came out of it. Right? She's saying she only met Ghislaine a couple of times. She didn't know Epstein. Bill saying he didn't do anything, even though he was on the plane 20 times, whatever. Yeah, I didn't sleep with any of these women, no. He's always said that he never did, but we know he did. Illinois official got more than $300,000 from a trucking industry while his agency gave illegal licenses. So that's why these illegal licenses are getting given out. To these aliens, there was just a guy from Somalia driving an 18-wheeler the wrong way up the road. Can't you see the cars coming at you, moron? You don't need to be able to read a sign to know that you're on the wrong side of the road, idiot. It's unbelievable. The Chicago Way, Illinois Secretary of State Alexei Giannoulias, a Democrat who's reportedly considering a run for Chicago mayor, is facing scrutiny over his role in improperly issuing CDL licenses after a series of high-profile big rig crashes across the country. Oh yeah, if it's found out you gave out illegal licenses and that person ends up killing somebody, you should be sued. You should be able to be also have to go up on a murder charge. It's just like when a bartender overserves somebody at his establishment that he sees is obviously inebriated and gives him another round, and that guy goes and drives off and kills somebody. You can now be charged with that murder. House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan suggests Minnesota officials assisted billions in welfare fraud. And did you watch the State of the Union, how disgusting that was? What Ilhan Omar and that other woman were doing, screaming back at the president, being told they almost got thrown out of the proceedings. They should have been thrown out. They left early. I think Rashida Tlaib's wearing a F ICE button. Like she's a real piece of work. I can't believe these people keep getting re-elected. But when you flood the state with a bunch of Somalis and she's a Somali from Somalia, well, yeah, she's going to get elected. They're rigging the votes in all these states to get these people elected and keep people like AOC and them in power. They keep getting re-elected. Nobody's voting for them. Very few. Minnesota is the single greatest theft of taxpayer dollars to welfare fraud in American history. I think New York and California is going to beat them when they uncover it all. New York's one of the most fraudulent states in the world in terms of the amount of graft that's run through it. Boss Tweed's just one example of it. There's been other areas where there's been all kinds of organized crime, bribing the mayor and having control all the way up to the mayor, etc. So, Secret Service kills shotgun-wielding man in Trump's Mar-a-Lago after he broke through security perimeter. So they're going to have to redo the security. If one guy can get through with a shotgun, what if he got through with like a saw rifle or an AR-15 that has a large capacity magazine or something belt fed, right? And then he sets up, he could do a lot of damage, right? So you got, obviously the security is not adequate around Mar-a-Lago. But I mean, what is going on here? We got a fake president running around who's not the right height, and then another one that looks like he is. We have Trump now attacking Iran with Israel. saying he's going to come out with some kind of extraterrestrial information. Medbed still never came out. No free energy. None of that stuff. Not even talked about, right? Still, he's talking about oil, and he's not trying to dismantle Monsanto and these large companies. He's in fact working to help preserve them, it looks like to me. Mexican resort town airport under siege after army kills major Jalisco New Generation cartel leader. Which was on Men's show, right? Californians trapped as cartel unleashes hell near U.S. border over drug kingpins killing. Pray for us. Now you got Americans trapped. Friends, are going to take a quick break. It's about an hour in. My coffee usually runs out about 1 hour in. That's my sip ratio. You could calculate the sip ratio to... I don't know how you do that. There's an equation for it where I failed algebra multiple times, so unfortunately. Some people, if you're like left brain oriented, some of this math stuff to you looks like a jigsaw puzzle, right? It's like, remember in the Peanuts when the parents would talk, you could never understand what they said in the Peanuts, right? It always sounded like wah 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 wah, right? And it was like the parents were tuned out. They spoke a foreign language in the Peanuts. That's what I always liked about the Peanuts. It seemed like the parents always spoke a foreign language. We got Americans trapped in Mexico, which I always thought was not a great place to go vacation anyway. Who creates about 1/4 of the world's silver is created by guess what country? Mexico. A lot of silver there and other things. More than 350,000 people are without power, so I'm going to take that break. Thousands of flights were canceled because of that blizzard in the Northeast. New York City was shut down that day. I didn't even see plows moving. At one point it just got to be too heavy and too much. But they did a good job of keeping up with it, and the roads were fairly clear. By morning, most of the roads were passable, if not clear. So, good job to the Department of Sanitation. Do I give Mamdani credit for that? No, not really. The Department of Sanitation has certain guidelines they go by when storms come. They don't need any guidance from the city in terms of how to do what they do. They've been doing it a long time. They have grid systems set up where plows are working constantly, and they have GPS on all plows so they know what areas plows are in and where they need to go. And it's a dance. It's an intricate dance that's done by the Department of Sanitation, and they do a great job. So shout out to the Department of Sanitation. So I'll be right back in just one moment. I'm going to go get some more coffee, and I hope you're doing well. My name is Ash. This is my news punditry show I've been doing since 2020. I actually started summer of 2020 when I got back from going cross country in July. Late July I started, so I must have started up around July, August with this. And then I remember, of course, the election going off and wondering what the heck just happened. How did Biden win when they knew there was cheating going on, when they knew about the Dominion machines? And now everyone's saying, oh, Trump's going to do a 17-page order about the elections. Well, you should have done that when you first got into office in 2016. That should have been one of the first things you did, and said, look, there's something wrong with our election process. These machines, we're seeing they're changing the vote process on air as it's being counted. That shouldn't be possible. I'm doing an executive order right away that's going to make sure that we never use Dominion voting machines again. Did he do that? No. He let multiple midterm elections go on and another presidential election, and he never fixed it. Why didn't he fix it? Well, because they needed to cheat to get Biden in. They're all involved in it together. That's my point. See, if he had fixed the voting system his first term, Biden couldn't get in. They couldn't have done what they wanted to do. They couldn't have opened the border up and let Biden be the bad guy and say, oh, look at how these evil Democrats are. But then look at what he goes and does. Does he go and defends Clinton and says, I don't like this. I don't like that you're looking at the Clintons and the Epstein files. I don't like it. There's nothing to see there. Really? There's millions of these files. What do you mean there's nothing there? There's all kinds of stuff in there. There's all kinds of people in there getting caught, and you are in there in multiple ways. Some people said that Trump is in there as many as 16,000 times. And if there's stuff in burn bags about you, and if there's stuff that, some of the FBI stuff that's being hidden by Bondi and others, then when they were trying to get critical with Bondi about Trump, she just said, well, look at his record. She went into some spiel that she was told to do that, and she's smiling the whole time, saying, I'm not going to answer that fucking question. So she's obviously a controlled entity. So you're not getting a full story about Epstein. You're just getting a part of it. And there's much deeper parts to Epstein that you're not even seeing. There's other people that you don't even know exist yet. There's other islands. So friends, I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. I'll be right back in a moment. I'm going to go get this coffee, and in the meantime, you can do some push-ups, sit-ups, and burpees, and I'll be right back. Thanks, friends. Okay, I'm back. Thanks, friends. I appreciate that break. I needed it. So there's more than 350,000 people were without power from the blizzard. There wasn't much power lost. I never lost any power in New York. Some people did, but it's rare. Sometimes in the outer boroughs, people lose power, like in Queens or Long Island. There's a lot more trees, and power lines are above ground in those areas. Of course, Manhattan, the power lines are under the ground. Sometimes you get manhole explosions. The salt erodes in the water, gets into the wiring under the ground. It can cause a lot of trouble. Greenland and Denmark have rejected Trump's U.S. hospital vote. They don't seem to need it. Brazil and India signed a deal for rare earths and look to increase their trade past $20 billion. So Brazil is signing deals with India. India is making deals with all kinds of people, not with the U.S. right now. The U.S. is in major trouble financially. Our trade status is in trouble. The petrodollar has basically been destroyed. It's on its deathbed. You're seeing silver and gold spike because the market, there's a lot of people that are worried about the market. It seems like the market's been propped up to the point, well beyond the point where it would have crashed in the old system that they had, right? They have a system set up where about every 30 to 50 years the market crashes in a major way, corrects, and those big whales, like, that's how people like Buffett get richer and richer and richer. He waits for those moments when there's extreme trauma in the market and he moves, right? He makes big moves. Like if you looked in the past, Buffett bought a huge amount of silver back in the day, I think around the time when it was $2 to $3 an ounce. He bought a massive amount of silver. Do you know how much that's worth now? If he's still holding it? So, he's a guy that plays those angles. And then waits for the government to say, hey, can you help us? We fucked up so bad. We made this let some of these bankers make some of these assets that are total garbage, right? Like bunches, different things mixed together into different financial instruments that are just complete crap that nobody should be allowed to sell. And we're going to sell them to people and make them think it's worth something. Like Bitcoin. Same thing, right? And then they make you think it's going to be adopted worldwide when there's only going to be 21 million of those coins. And there's how many people in the world doing how many financial interactions each day? You don't have enough Bitcoin to do that market. You don't have enough Bitcoin to even run a state. So, I don't know what you're talking about. These things can't be adopted as a currency that the world would use. No. They're not backed by anything. Federal judge blocks release of Jack Smith report on classified document case against Trump. Bizarre Epstein files messages with Woody Allen reignite wild Wayfair Gate conspiracy theory. Yeah, one of these Epstein files said, emails that said that they sent something from Wayfair over there. So what did they get him, a pillow? Or did they order a child to be delivered over to the mansion that they could then abuse? Was that what they did? We don't know. Newsom responds to the blowback over his racist remarks, and boy is he mad. Yeah, he goes in there and says, I'm a 940 SAT guy. Well, I'm an 840 SAT guy, and I'm 10 times smarter than you. SAT is not a great measure of the person's intellect or how smart they are or whatever IQ level. It's just a stupid test. That's all it is. And tests can be made a certain way to make a certain result if that's what you're looking for. It could be geared a certain way. Right? I'm not a big fan of testing people to show proficiency, although that's what our whole school system is, right? They teach you a bunch of information, most of it's bullshit, and they'd say, how can you regurgitate that information back the way I told it to you, or not? The better you are at regurgitating and back the information they give you, the better you do at school. That's all it is. It doesn't mean that the information they're teaching you is actually correct or proper. No, it just is a bunch of information. Newsom responds to the blowback. So, yeah, he's trying to make it, I'm just stupid, just like the rest of you, which is incredibly insulting to say to any group of people, like as if any whole group of people is one thing, right? To assume that any group of people is one thing is, some people think is racist. Some people think it's, like, here's one. Your stereotypes, right? People build up stereotypes. Oh, well, all Jews are cheap. Black people eat watermelon and fried chicken and they love that shit. Whatever. And there's ones for every different ethnic group and race of people that you can think of, right? That they're all this way, that they all do this thing, that they're all like this, right? Which is not true, of course. Every ethnicity and group of people has differing people that have different things that they like and different things that they do, right? To assume that all of a group of people are doing the same thing or are the same is usually frowned upon in most open societies, right? To think those things. They call them racist tropes, they can be called, right? And these kinds of racist things have been common in the United States and throughout our history. Right? Different groups have been ostracized, treated badly, land stolen from them, murdered and killed, raped, their societies and their areas taken over by people with more power and money when those areas became valuable. Right? There's different stories you could go look up. Like the story of that indigenous tribe that realized, we have oil on our lands that we were told to go to this reservation by the government. We were given these lands, and these lands that we were given happened to have oil on it. Well, we're going to use it. And then people would come in and say, well, we're going to kill you for it because we don't want you to have it. We want that. We want whites to have that, not you. Trump has quietly got Mexico to hand over 100 cartel leaders, including Almencho's brother, before the Jalisco raid. So that's good. That's one thing you could say he's doing that's a good thing. He's probably threatening Mexico in a very, very large way that if you don't do something more, we're going to come into your country and either take over part of it or all of it, right? Because they're already talking about buffer zones of like 10 to 25 miles from the border on each direction, inside Mexico too, that they want, where no one's going to be allowed to move. That's what they have to do. They got to stop these routes that are going towards the border further back, so they're not even allowed to get anywhere near the border. New York City won't tear down street encampments, Mamdani says, as homeless people spotted camping out during a historic blizzard. So all of a sudden he says he's not going to take down the encampments. And there were homeless people in certain small areas where they don't want them. I think that a lot of people froze to death in that winter, right? You make your own decisions, right? You want to stay out in that and try to live? Go ahead. I'd rather try to make it on the train overnight than stay out in a tent in 8 degrees. Mamdani's thin-skinned press secretary blocked social media comments, a clear First Amendment violation, critics say. Yeah. You're not allowed as a public official to block your comments or block people. You're a public official. The public has access to you. If you don't want to be a public official and have your tweets be all public that you can't hide them, then don't be a public official, is what I would say. Lord Mandelson arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This is coming from BBC. So another person arrested for misconduct, not just Andrew, but other people. And one of the biggest crimes that these politicians in Britain have done to the British people is flooding their country with illegal aliens, mostly Arab, Muslim-aged, Muslim, military-age Muslim males. Right? You're seeing all those videos come out where, there's parts of England now that, were historically looked one way, and now when you go there, you could be in Africa or some other country like that where you don't almost see any white people at all, as if they've just completely taken over some of these areas. Mamdani's disguised threat to New York City's Jews. I wrote, who is allowing Muslims to pray in Times Square? You need a permit to have a gathering there. Do these people have a permit? Okay, guys, so I'm back with you. And basically what happened was that the video froze in the beginning, like I said, and we had a problem. So I'm back. Excuse me, we're still recording. I appreciate you understanding that I needed to record that because I didn't want to have to speak for another whole hour and 20 plus finishing up this show. So now that I'm back with you, I'm happy to still be with you. And the veiled threat to Jews was allowing a bunch of Muslims to pray in Times Square without a permit. Usually you have to have a permit to have a gathering, but there's no other religion that has these kinds of things happen, right? Where they're praying publicly in the street. In parts of France, they do that. It's to send us a statement. It's to intimidate others who aren't part of their religion, right? They're blocking off parts of the street so you cannot. So you cannot move about in some of these towns and smaller places. Who's allowing Muslims to pray in Times Square? Is it Mamdani? Netflix stock plunges after refusing to fire Susan Rice over threats to Trump officials. See, they have several different people working there from, Obama's orbit, right? And the question is, why is that happening? We don't know. But they allowed certain people from Obama's orbit to go into Netflix who had no experience there. Tests for commercial driver's licenses will become English only. Yeah, they should have always been English only. What we're doing is implementing a rule that will say there's only one language in which you can take your test. It's English. Yeah. Same thing with your test for becoming a U.S. citizen. It's in English. If you can't do it in English, don't do it. Mamdani's blasted after true unruly mob launches disgusting snowball attack. Yeah, they let the cops get hit with snowballs, ice balls sometimes. We used to get in ice ball fights. We put ice inside the snowball. We used to have kids come out with water and make ice balls. Have them stacked up, right? Those hurt. You get hit in the head with that from half a block away, or some kid launching one from like 40 feet from you and it hits you right in the head. Here's an opinion piece: how Gavin Newsom's cringe racist boast spells trouble for 28 Democrats. Yeah, it looked bad when you're saying, you're sort of saying, I'm stupid like you, claiming that a whole race of people is dumb. This goes back to also what these people were doing. Look at what these people did in 1991 and 1992 with the rap game. They managed to criminalize it, right? They changed the bands around, and they promoted bands that were talking about hoes and bitches and drugs and guns, and they stopped putting records out from bands that were talking about other stuff that wasn't that, right? And everything changed up, and they managed to put a lot of African American males in prison from 1990s on, and it's even earlier than that, right? Convicted criminals on the loose in Mexico after thugs rammed prison gate during riot over cartel killing. So rammed one of the prisons. They got more guys out. This is the Sicario, Day of the Soldado, playing itself out. And whoever's left, they'll just kill those people off. And let them all kill each other as much as possible. And this is what we've done with past people we've created, like Pablo Escobar, El Mencho, El Chapo, people like this. They're just used for a time, and then when their usefulness is over, they're either killed, captured and imprisoned or whatever. Most of the time, there's no retirement package for these guys. Andy No reports Texas targets Houston Antifa terror cell and terror probe. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's office is conducting an investigation into Screwston Antifa. Well, this should have happened a long time ago, that Antifa should have been removed and taken out. Some of the higher levels were, I think, the early on people that were into Antifa. Some are in jail, but not enough. Trump honors American families who lost loved ones to illegal alien crime, declares February 22nd National Angel Family Day. Their stories were censored and suppressed like maybe almost never before, so that the politicians could open our borders and allow our nation to be invaded. That's true. And that woman, the Ukrainian girl's mother who got stabbed to death on the train, they couldn't even stand up for her, right? The Democrats. And when Trump asked, if you believe in service to the people of your country first is the utmost responsibility of all Democrats and all politicians, the Democrats couldn't stand up for that either. A tearful Savannah Guthrie offers now $1 million reward for her kidnapped mother. My question is, why'd you wait so long? You should have put the $1 million up right away and asked for proof of life. That's what you do in a ransom case. If you can't give me proof of life, we're not giving you a dime. Where's the ransom demand? Why would you kidnap somebody and not demand a ransom? Ivanka Trump's father-in-law is banished by Macron after sparking a diplomatic firestorm. So this guy's in trouble because he was summoned by the French officials to talk about what happened in this Antifa killing, as if he knows, and apparently decided not to even show up to the meeting. Then they prance out Robert De Niro again, who's of course hates Trump's guts and is, keeping the illusion going that these two sides hate each other when in fact they're working together against us. And he says how much he hates Trump and he's crying. He wishes he could have his country back. And it's all a bunch of bullshit. It's making me just sick to my stomach watching. These people are all so disgusting. I wish we could all just get rid of the whole bunch of them at once. I wish they could just dematerialize. Joe Biden's inner circle's worried as his incurable cancer's making him even more frail, so he's going to check out soon. That fake, whatever that thing is that they're saying is Biden. Woke mayor's tax threat sends shockwaves to New York City housing market. An almost 10% property tax will definitely send a shockwave. It's going to hurt people, and it's going to make a lot of people leave. A lot of people. Ex-British ambassador to the U.S., Peter Mandelson, was freed by police. Panama seizes control of 2 ports operated by Hong Kong subsidiaries, so they're taking control back of the Panama Canal from China, it looks like. Trump-related files are missing from DOJ's Epstein file release. So there's a lot of files that have something to do with Trump, and they're not being released. The question is why? And the other side saying, well, if that was true, then they would have done it during Biden. No, not necessarily. Not if that's not the plan. Not if the plan is for Biden to just open up the borders and not talk about Epstein. Because Epstein implicates a lot of Democratic people, like in stars who are Democrats. They don't want that. Right? They don't want Gates out there that he's banging Russian girls and getting venereal diseases. They don't want it out there that Woody Allen's over there hanging with Epstein, who he's right up the block from. They don't want it out there that Prince Andrew's hanging out at Epstein's mansion and girls are going to Epstein's mansion being impregnated there and the baby's taken from him. They don't want people to know that he's running a baby factory out of there. Panama seizes control of 2 ports. Trump-related files are missing. NPR and MS Now report that first related that files related to President Trump are missing from the Department of Justice's release of the Epstein documents. So I heard there's 6 million documents, and there's only like 3 or 4 million out, which means there's millions of documents that still are not been released. Michael Goodwin, Mayor Mamdani offers sloppy response to NYPD officers attacked with snowballs. Yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to throw anything at anybody, I don't think. You know, a snowball fight's one thing, but if the cops are there to break it up and you start hitting them, you should be arrested, because you can hurt somebody with snowballs if there's ice in it. One of the cops got a black eye from one of the snowballs that were thrown at him. It's not okay. It promotes sort of a atmosphere where some think it's okay to attack police when it's not. The sickening contents of Jeffrey Epstein's secret storage locker. So there was a bunch of not addresses, but names of other masseuses that he had in different places, of different names, and some other pornography that was there. Either self-made or other, I'm not sure. Some DVDs, 8 VHS tapes were there. Nobel winner Richard Axel resigns from Columbia over the Epstein file. So you're seeing like people like Larry Summers step down, other people. Lutnick might step down. It's possible he was on the island more than one time that he said, although he's pictured with Epstein on the island one time. Mamdani and AOC sparked backlash for urging illegal aliens to sign up for free New York City childcare and cringy Spanish ad. So a lot of people are getting pissed off here in New York because their tax dollars are being used to pay for illegal aliens' kids to be educated when their own kids are not being properly educated, and their tax dollars aren't being used for them. How much longer is this going to be allowed to go on? New York's in deep trouble, both financially and politically. Well, you let 2 million people vote in a place that apparently has 8 million. That means 6 million people are not voting in your mayoral election. That seems to me to be a little bit odd. UN General Assembly adopts Ukraine ceasefire resolution as U.S. abstains, so the U.S. isn't taking part. How much money was laundered through Ukraine the past 20 years? It seems to be billions. Security crisis persists in Jalisco, Mexico, despite 10,000 troops. You're going to have to kill most of these gang members, I wrote. Most will not surrender. The ones that are left, you're going to have to kill them all, right? They're not going to just say we're going to stop doing it. Maybe the lower level ones will. Some you'll be able to make deals with, I'm assuming. But not the higher levels of the cartels, no. The FBI is searching the home and office of the Los Angeles Unified School District Superintendent Alberto Cavallo. So there's something wrong with the Los Angeles School District. It's corrupt, I'm assuming. They've been stealing money, which is what goes on in a lot of these things. It gets large budgets of amounts of cash. It's easy to misrepresent and misappropriate the funds, right? If you're creative with your bookkeeping. And a lot of these people are very creative with their bookkeeping. Very creative. David suspected of murder in the Celeste Rivas case. Body was badly dismembered and stuffed in a cadaver bag. Explosive new docs reveal. Yeah, I mean, if I look at that guy and I think about him, I feel like he did the murder, or he was involved in it somehow. Ordered it. When I look at him, I just see a dark, evil force over him, or a dark, evil person. And that some of these people are satanic, right? They give themselves over to Lucifer, into dark practices and dark things. And of course, there's some people that don't have a soul that are here, right? And that are, who knows what they're doing. They're worshiping dark things, unfortunately. Ex-Treasury Secretary Larry Summers has resigned from Harvard over the Epstein files, UPI News. Mexico Scheinbaum. Trump and I discussed Al Mencho's capture. I wrote, word is that Al Mencho is actually running Mexico unofficially. That's possible, could be possible. It's pretty obvious to me that cartels were running that place for a long time. U.S. Justice Department accused of withholding Trump-related Epstein files. So it looks like there's more files that are probably not so, Trump keeps saying I'm exonerated. The files are exonerating me. Well, not if they're not all out yet. We don't know that. And there's already mentioned, you've already been accused of witnessing an infanticide and at least one rape. So, I don't know what you're talking about. And if you go look at the other stuff that, what is that other pundit kid's name? Jordan Sather, or whatever his name is, I think, Sather. He has all kinds of documentation about the other cases that apparently Trump settled some cases in the court that he was accused of other things earlier, and he settled those with cash. So you're not exonerated, in my view. And there's still files that are not being released by these people. Trump calls for mentally deranged Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib to be institutionalized for their SOTU antics. How do they keep getting reelected? Obviously, it's a tainted process. You don't have control of your election process. Trump announces Vance-led war on fraud. In addition to scandal-racked Minnesota, the president indicated that California, Massachusetts, and Maine could see enforcement activity. What about New York? That's where the big stuff is. What about Cali? Cali they'll take first, I guess. Maybe New York will be last. That's where they'll... And Mamdani just visited Trump and he's begging for more cash, but he's not going to give him anything. You're going to have to figure out how to build affordable housing or free housing for the homeless. How are you going to do that? Going to make little homeless enclaves? You could do it that way with little mini houses. Little communities. You could do that. You got to figure out how to do it cheap and how to make it for no non-profit. That's the problem. Nobody wants to make anything non-profit. Does Trump know how to build non-profit housing? No. He only knows how to build for-profit. Regardless of immigration status, Mamdani and AOC are pushing people free pre-K for illegal aliens and their kids. So they can get their kids in pre-K, their kids into your school, even though they're not from here. But you can't sneak into another country and do that. You can't sneak into Mexico. Somebody should do that. Sneak into Mexico over the border, show up in Mexico City, and try to put your kindergarten-age child into their school there. See how fast your ass gets kicked out. Democratic Senator Murphy, Trump's numbers are falling in part because we effectively shut the government down. Well, that's your ploy, right? Let's just shut the whole thing down instead of do anything. Mike Johnson says he's nearly ejected these members of the squad over their State of the Union outbursts. Tlaib and Omar should be ashamed. They're traitors to the U.S. in my view. That's what I wrote. Ilhan Omar's guest was arrested at Trump's State of the Union. James Wood shreds the Somali parasite Ilhan Omar. She's an insufferable scum. Democrats protesting Trump's SOTU speech. I agree with them on that. Former Norwegian Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland is hospitalized amid the Epstein probe. Jagland has been under investigation for aggravated corruption. So there is some leaders getting arrested. They're not going to Gitmo. They're just being prosecuted in their own countries. South Korea is another one that did that. Is the U.S. doing it? No. We have a fake president running around still, apparently. Is time running out for sanctuary cities? Yeah, it's been running out. There's no more money left to afford it. And all the billions you spent on these illegal aliens, housing them and others, now we're in a massive hole for that of $10 or $11 billion that you can't plug up anymore. And no one's going to give you any more money, not Trump. Trump's not giving you $10 billion. No way. So hackers just stole Mexico's tax and voter rolls, and you'll never guess how. PJ Media. How much was the government lying about the illegal immigrant crime wave? A lot. There was way more criminals than they let on coming in. It wasn't just all innocent families. No, that was bullshit. There were rapists and gang members and Tren de Aragua and others. MS-13. Clinton's plot games and explosive Epstein testimony as Republicans reveal their strategy. Well, it looks like the strategy was, hey, we'll just let you guys slide on the Clinton Foundation investigation. We'll tell Huber to go fuck himself and not finish it. We'll spend all this money doing it, the investigation too, and never finish it, and never come out with any report on the Clinton Foundation. And then when you go up to talk about Epstein, just say you didn't know him that well, and that you're not happy about it, and that Trump was innocent, though, right? Remember how Clinton said that? There's the kicker. That's how you know they made a deal. WEF CEO Borge Brend resigns. Jeffrey Epstein probe concludes. Somehow the price of beef in Argentina, a place that has ample beef, is up 73% in 1 year. Why is that? Are you slaughtering a lot of your cattle, claiming that they're sick to drive the beef prices up? I don't know. This is a place that has some of the best beef in the world and ample ranches that have large amounts of cattle. In the Pampas, right? Hillary Clinton to testify, so she already did, but it was a closed door, right? Non-public. So the public never got to see what she said. And I don't think that was fully televised, right? No. It's closed door. And then she tells Congress she didn't have any relationship with Epstein. She met Ghislaine once or twice. She was, yeah, she came to my daughter's wedding, but my daughter knew her a little bit. I barely met her, right? But your husband knew him pretty well. He came to the White House 17 different times. Why was that? NYPD arrests man accused of hitting officers during snowball fight. So they let the guy right out. They got him, but they let him right out. So what's the point? Now the Bohemian Grove list came out, right? That was interesting. Maybe that's why my Did it stop again? No, I'm still recording, thank goodness. So far. Bohemian Grove list came out. I didn't notice any big names on that stuck out at me. Right, I didn't go through the whole list though. So the Somali trucker was busted driving the wrong way down the highway. He failed the English test. But how do you not know that you're going the wrong way? Don't you know what the car headlights look like coming at you? Most people would say, whoops, I got to get to the other side of the road, like stat. Which is not easy to do in an 18-wheeler, because if there's any dip down, you could get stuck, right? It's not like most times you can just cross over to the other side of the highway and it's flat. No, there's usually a divider, which is like in some kind of a divot in between, right? So you can't do that with an 18-wheeler. It's not so easy. You got to find a U-turn spot or somewhere where it's flat where you can do it. Pakistan bombs Taliban targets in Afghan cities. Minister calls it open war. So they're trying to set off the World War III, I guess. Right? They hit Iran, and then they got Pakistan going at it with, Afghanistan a little bit. All they need is one more country or two more to jump in, and you got yourself a regional war. Which I don't think will happen. U.S. allows some embassy staff to leave Israel. So that was a day ago, so you could see that they were already planning on hitting Iran, right? As soon as he made the announcement in 10 days ago, he said, well, you got this much time. CIA helped kill Mexican drug lord El Mencho. Yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they killed a lot of other people in South America, too. When's it going to come out how many people were ordered killed and how many people have the CIA killed in the last 50 years? That's a long list. They apparently tried to kill the leader of Cuba, Castro, more than 100 times. Fidel. Florida man arrested over an alleged $328 million crypto Ponzi schemes. This is what I'm talking about. These crypto coins are used in a lot of schemes. They're used to move money around in clandestine ways. And I'd rather they don't exist than they do. I don't see any real value in them. And I don't see why we can't create another different coin or a new... We used to have paper currency backed by silver and gold, right? It was called silver certificates, gold certificates. I've shown you them before. We can print that money again. That way, that's how we solve this problem. Because where are you going to trade in your silver and gold? You should be able to go into your bank and trade it in for cash and or silver or gold or other or more silver or gold. And you can't right now. You should be able to in every bank, or at least regional banks. $900 million was taken out of a solar panel program and pumped into the Dem voting activism Cal Doge claims. So they're ripping off different... There's all this graph sitting out. There's Epstein sitting out in front of you, and nothing's being done about it. Nobody's being arrested, right? All these people like the Clintons, who you've been waiting years for them to go in front of some kind of group of people and be forced to testify. But did they get anything on them? No. What's going to come from that testifying? Are they going to go to jail now? It doesn't appear so. So this is all just a facade. It's all bullshit. It's all it's a canard. It's a bunch of bullshit to make you think something's happening, but nothing really is. These people are working together to cover this shit up and take you into the Agenda 30 program. the Agenda 30 world, which is going to be the world's going to be cut up into zones, right? Don't look now, but Canada's military aims to recruit foreign soldiers? The Liberal government plans to look outside of Canada to fill some jobs in the Army, Navy, and Air Force with foreign specialists? How do you know that you were not letting spies into your government with that? That's how Rome fell, right? Because they eventually conquered so many lands that they didn't have any Roman soldiers anymore. Their soldiers were all just people that were forced into the army from other lands that they had conquered, and they had no allegiance to Rome, those people, in the end, right? They hated Rome. Why'd they hate Rome? Because Rome had enslaved them and destroyed their cultures. Why would Canada allow foreigners into their army? That's a sign that they're in deep trouble. They've also allowed China now to have a military base on their land, which is highly dubious and that's going to anger the United States, and they should have known that. That's why they did it. Megyn Kelly shares creepy new photo of Bill Clinton up to his old tricks as he faces Epstein deposition. Yeah, he's staring down her friend's shirt, right? He's staring down his friend's shirt, right? That's what he's doing. You got caught staring down your friend's shirt, who has a low-cut top and appears to be well endowed in the chest area, let's just say. Right. Bill's not too obvious, is he? Of course he is. He's extremely obvious. Top Trump official under pressure to testify as deleted Epstein photo emerges. So then what does Hillary come out and say? Well, what about Trump? Why doesn't he go up on and talk about what he knows? Which is true, right? He should talk about who he knows under oath. If he's clear and he has nothing to fear about Epstein. Kash Patel's country singer girlfriend lashes out at fake news after FBI head's Olympic beard chugging mishap. Yeah, he looked like a total idiot. Screaming, "Let's go!" like jumping up and down like as if he won. As if you're like because he's living out his fantasy. He never got to play sports, probably. He never was good at any sport. Here he is with all these sporting guys who are 6'2", 6'4", monstrous builds, perfect athletes. And he's this little scrawny little whatever, right? You had no business being in that locker room with those people. You have no business acting that way. You're the head of the FBI. You should act like it, not chugging a beer, jumping around like you're one of the boys. You just embarrass yourself in a major way. And you embarrass this country. You should be ashamed of yourself. Wannabe YouTube star gets a slap on the wrist for a chaotic snowball attack. Yeah, there's no, if I go down and I confront the guy in the food cart that's right in front of my building that I can't stand, if I punch him in the face or something like that, you don't think I'm going to jail right away? And they're going to put on the hate crime because he's an ethnicity that's not white? Sure. But this guy can go attack a cop and it's no problem. Pakistan in open war with Afghanistan after airstrikes. U.S. has authorized the release of Venezuelan oil to Cuba for private sector sale. Why would you do that? Where's the money going? Again, do we know it's going into the right place? Is it going into the banks in Venezuela? We don't know that. Defiant Bill Clinton claims he saw nothing and did nothing wrong, despite trove of racy Epstein file pics. Well, it looked like you might have done something wrong. You're in hot tubs with some of these masseuses. It's like you're hanging out with them. You're going on all across the world with Epstein on these planes. Who knows what you're doing when you're stopping in these different countries. Gavin Newsom's father went to war with shadowy Bohemian Grove over a member's X-rated antics. That's interesting. Right? In other words, they had all men and no women worked there at one time. So they said you have to allow women to work there. Well, then we can't walk around naked anymore doing our orgies. If there's men and women here too that work here, they might see us. U.S. and Israel launched major attack on Iran. Trump urges Iranians to take over your government. Iran strikes back near U.S. Navy base in Bahrain, launches barrage of missiles, harrowing video shows. $5 million reward has now been offered for Sinaloa cartel boss La Rana, charged with narco-terrorism. So now La Rana's death clock has started, it looks like. Because when you put that much money on someone's head, somebody's going to come out of the woodwork and pop you. It's like in John Wick Parabellum, right? When they put the death order, they put the hit on John Wick, it's like $8 million. Like, yeah, everybody's going after that one. They don't give a shit, it's John Wick. Somebody will get lucky and get him, right? But most of them can't get him because he's John freaking Wick, right? Clinton says Trump is innocent in explosive Epstein testimony as Donald tears into Republicans for dragging Bill to the grilling, right? How dare you mess with the Clintons? Why would you do that? I thought you were supposed to mess with them. What do you mean, why? His views to the Clintons have changed drastically, which makes me think it's not the real Trump there. Because the real Trump hated them. Hated Hillary, right? Serbia refuses to cooperate with Israeli authorities on the arrest of ex-Netanyahu party advisor. This is not a drill. China's building a base in Canada and possibly the Catskills. PJ Media. So China has been allowed to build a base now in Canada somewhere, which is right next to the United States. Multiple high-ranking Islamic commanders, regime officials have been killed, allegedly killed in Operation Epic Fury. So now they're reporting that I think they're reporting that they did kill the leader of Iran. Let's hope that's true. Not that you would wish anybody's death, but U.S. and Israel attack Iran. Live updates. Let's see if there's any new updates. U.S. just strikes Iran. That's all we can. Multiple high-ranking Islamic commanders and regime officials have been killed. We're not sure yet if the leader of Iran is still alive or not. That is right now up for dispute. The fate of Iran's Supreme Ayatollah, the fate of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is unclear right now. Also, some part of Dubai was hit with a missile. So that's all I got for you, friends. I'm sorry that I had to do the show in this way, but at least I got the whole show done where it's going to make sense now, and I didn't have to do the whole hour and 30-minute part over again. So I appreciate you. I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. Obviously, we're at a point now where Trump has tried to free the people of Iran, which I think is a noble thing, I guess, what he's doing. But is this all like really a scripted game? You can see that it is with the Clintons, with the way the Clintons were just let go, with the way the Clintons were allowed to skate, the way Trump comes out publicly and defends them, and then the way they publicly come out and defend him. Others have come up there and also made a point of trying to defend Trump and say he's not part of the Epstein files. But the reality of it is that he is. He's mentioned in there many times, and there's still millions of these files that haven't been released yet. So we're going to wait and see what those files end up saying. I hope you're well. I hope this audio comes out okay on this. I hope you're working out, stretching, staying in your center space. This is your friend in New York, Ash, NPNP News, signing off for now.